Summit, dog hounds, and
Yeah, we haven't been there.
it's, what league is that, what level is that?
Independent.
In,
My daughter goes there with her kids and husband all the time. They love it. They have a ball.
yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like it's a
Looks like it might be
friendly
fun.
and a smaller environment, you know. $2 hot dogs.
Yeah, it's affordable.
It says 7.
I don't know if you can get one for 7 in Woodward Park. It's got a field day.
Well, it's 5:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is Thursday, June 1st, 5:30. We are at Lamar Town Hall, meeting of the Highway Committee. Roll call, Miller.
Here.
Twelmeyer. Here. Gajewski is here. Any public comment? None? Moving on, new business, item number 1, review of the Highway Committee responsibilities per resolution 2014-04. Seeing as this is our kind of inaugural meeting as a group here, I just wanted to go through the resolution that was passed in 2014 by the town board, just so everybody had a copy of it as a committee member. If you want to go through these item by item, we can. If you have questions about what is outlined in that resolution, we can do that as well.
I'm not helping anybody take offense, though.
Yeah, I think that was related to snow fence, but
Oh, okay.
hopefully not. Questions, comments? All right, then we'll move on to item number 2. Discussion and possible action on the 2023 local road pavement ratings. What was supplied in packets was a copy of the correspondence from Wisconsin DOT that was sent to town clerk, forwarded to me and town board members. At this point, we've got until December 15th of 2023 to do the annual ratings and then submit them either hard copy to WISDOT, or my preferred would be to do it online through their WAMS ID portal that they've got set up for that. So it's obviously only the 1st of June and we've got some time to do that, but I wanted to bring it up at this point so that everybody was aware that it is due December 15th. And looking back at the 22 versus 21 ratings, I don't think that anything was updated or changed as far as the ratings of the roads in the town for the 2022 submittal. Depending on how we all or you all want to handle that, we can obviously schedule a meeting that would be kind of a traveling road show and more or less do the ratings as a group, or we can do them independently and meet at some point, a month or 2 from now maybe. Obviously we've got a bunch of other things pending as far as ratings and prioritizing and all that kind of good stuff too. But if there's any preference from either of you on how we handle doing the submittal, I'm definitely open to chat about that.
Generally, they'll start bugging you around the 1st of October to get it in. And what I always did, right, wrong, or whatever, was after the construction season was done, I would go through and do it so that you do it all at once. But you are a lot more familiar with that and easier going with that. You know, you could just do it as we go through and it probably wouldn't be a problem.
Yes, I've already taken a ride and done my opinion on what, the ratings and,
Okay.
that kind of thing, with what you supplied from the previous years when nothing really was changed, and then just took a ride in some possible projects if there is money available, so it's a start,
Sure. Do we want to plan to meet, call it early 3rd quarter of the year, and, if by chance we have a road blow apart
Sure.
between now and then, whatever, at least we'd have a closer vision towards the end of 23.
When you're gonna have stuff come up that you're gonna just make your decision on your own. Like, if a road just blows up, it has to be done, it has to be done. I don't see there's any need for us to all get together on that unless you wanna work on the contract stuff.
Okay.
Again, what I did was we'd have a meeting, 2 meetings in the spring, usually one like this, and then another after we determined what roads we were gonna work on and kind of go from there on that, and then one in the fall, kind of a recap. And I can't remember if there was in that thing for the resolution that we gotta meet a certain many times. I don't think that had a quarterly or anything, that was just more or less an as needed.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll look to make sure one way or the other here quick. Make recommendations, rate and review all roads under the jurisdiction. Recommend construction.
I don't really see a,
Yeah, I don't see a quarterly requirement on that, but, maybe we could just ballpark pencil something, depending, obviously, see where we go with funding and if we reconvene for a priority kind of, okay, now we know how much funding we have, we can move forward. But otherwise, maybe we aim for August and, if nothing else, if we don't have any money, obviously there's not a whole lot to do in between now and then. But we could potentially take a stab at August and go from there if you're good with that.
And there's no problem with you calling a meeting if you want, just as long as you give us notice or, whatever.
Okay. I'm just gonna write a note of a potential August. I don't think we have to take any official action on setting a temporary date for the time being.
But then next year, this meeting should probably be 2 months sooner.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm, in my minds, as the town board moves through what I hope is gonna be the start of budget season here in another month and a half, is that when we figure out where the budget lands, is to have a meeting potentially February-ish, just to go over that. And then hopefully by April have whatever scope of work it is out, that, we know what we wanna do, and then we're breathing a little easier on the funnel of construction and timelines and all that kind of stuff, so. Anything else on the ratings themselves? Going once?
yeah, no, I can leave you with this if you want, and I'll keep it for when you want to get back together and
Yeah.
review.
Well, like Cooper Road here is rated as a 7 from E halfway past Iron Road. It obviously isn't. I mean, but there's little things like that that are gonna show up on this map that aren't actual proper ratings.
Yeah. I think Little Prairie still hasn't been updated since that was paved.
Right.
21, I think that's rated as like
Oh,
a
that was rated
2 and 3 and that kind of thing.
When I went through it, I put it as a 7 plus, I mean, it still doesn't need crack, I mean, it really doesn't need anything,
Yeah.
but it's not a 2.
Yeah.
That's what the town has.
I would generally agree.
Well, at the time that I did that, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, so essentially, I think the ratings that we're sitting on is probably from 2020, actually, the last, tour and rating kind of thing, so. In the grand picture of things, when I had emailed out that ratings map a week or so ago to you guys, I had mentioned that I was also starting to go through the maintenance side of what the annual submittal would be too, in trying to compile what all the road maintenance treatments have been over the past, I'm just gonna say 7 or maybe 10 years or so after that. I don't know that it's entirely relevant for where we are. But as that kind of comes together, I'll obviously email that out to you and the clerk, and she usually sends all that stuff out to the town board as well, just kind of as an advisory of where we are and where things are gonna go. Anything else?
I can tell you all the treatments we did on all these roads in that time period, so it's, if you want me to send you an email with that stuff, I can do it.
Okay. Yeah, that would, I mean, when I get to the point, I was able to query the DOT portal and get, 7 years worth of information out of what was submitted. So I think I've got a fair amount of it, but once I get it put together, obviously if you've got the background knowledge, whatever, and can say, no, we also did this, or no, this wasn't, that kind of thing, and kind of do a proof on it, I think would be helpful that way, so you don't have to start from scratch on all of it. But good with that so far?
Yep.
All right, number 3 is discussion and possible action on the 2023 road maintenance and road construction budgets and funding opportunities. A little bit long-winded, but going through my understanding of the budget that was passed by the town board in 2022 for 2023, there's 2 specific line items. One of them is 53,311, which is highway and street maintenance for town. And the other one is 53,315, which is highway and street construction for the town. The budget that was adopted by the board included $179,622 for highway and street maintenance for the town and 0 for highway and street construction for the town. With that said, $0 is easy to spread across everything we have to do because we don't have any. Where we stand as of last month, the town clerk had been working with me on doing a budget comparison to present at monthly meetings, and roughly we're at 150,000 of that 179,000. It did include some preliminary patchwork, pothole filling that Northwest had been out doing and talking with Ron. They went through and did the biggest holes because all they were able to get was binder. So they were going to be going back through, and as of about a week and a half ago or so, they had wrapped up more or less their efforts on the spring pothole filling. So we're going to have an invoice coming in for that second round for sure. Obviously we've got mowing 2 times coming up yet, and the potential for a snowfall or 2 or more November and December. From a budgetary standpoint and an accounts payable standpoint, talking with the town clerk on how the town has historically done their accounts payable. My personal background has been that any work completed within a calendar year is retroed back into that year. Historically, the town of Palmyra has done more of a cash basis where it is paid when the invoice is paid, and not necessarily if there's a snowfall, the second to last week of December, and it's after the last town board meeting of the prior year that we get paid in January and then booked as a January expense, even though the actual efforts were done in 2022. So it's part of the reason why we are where we are with the maintenance line item budget, is because the majority of the snow came in January, February, March of this year rather than get split across. So at some point, we may have to consider, from the town board side of things, we may have to consider allocating some of the fund balance that we have to those efforts in the wintertime, because obviously we have to plow the snow, even if there's not necessarily any cash accounted for within the budget, or if it's going to be over the budget and that kind of thing. But once we get through, what I guess I would like to do from the maintenance standpoint is once we get through the first mowing and we kind of have that lull of the midsummer, is to sit down or bring it up at a town board meeting and say, okay, here's where we're at, here's what the estimate is, and then also roll that into budget discussions for 2024, so that we know where we're all at and where everything's going to go. But with that being said, on the construction side of things, the clerk received a letter from Jefferson County regarding road aid and bridge aid. The program itself is actually going to be shut down in 2024, so we've got 2 calendar years to be able to utilize the funds that the town has dedicated, via the county to those items. Excuse me, it's a little less than $24,000. It can be used for culverts, it can be used for, I believe, work that the county does on our behalf. So there's a small amount, again, I'm just using round numbers here for tonight, $24,000 over the next 2 years that has been designated already. In addition to that, we had a town board meeting last Thursday, discussed a number of things with the town attorney, one of which was ARPA funding. The town currently has, I believe it's round numbers, $26,000 in ARPA funding that has not been spent on other projects to date. And if this committee is on board with that, I would like to request to the town board that the rest of the ARPA funding be designated towards road construction for 2023 and or 2024, depending on how this all plays out. The window on ARPA funding is that it has to be committed and contracted by the end of 2024, and it can be completed after that. So we do have, again, some flexibility potentially. If the town board is on board with designating the rest of the ARPA funds towards highway maintenance, then obviously we could utilize that funding from the county.
That isn't something they're gonna try to claw back, is it?
It is not. So with everything that's going on with the debt ceiling and the back and forth that's going to happen yet over the next who knows how long, the ARPA funding is actually designated through the, there's another acronym for it, I think it's SRLF funding. That within the government's eyes has been designated already. What they're looking at doing is some of the other programs that have pooled money available that hasn't been allocated specifically towards a function, so to speak, or where they were going to end up using that money, that is part of what's on the line. But the Town Association actually emailed out earlier today, that said that the ARPA funding that has been disseminated to all the communities is not going to be rescinded, even if there's not a designated purpose for it, like the remainder of what we have on hand at this point for the town here. The third, prong to this whole thing is at the May town board meeting, the auditors presented the 2022 audit, and at the close of 2022, we had $217,000, roughly, again, round numbers, $217,000 in the general fund balance. Whether or not that's available, obviously there's needs that would be that money if it's not budgeted for, i.e. snow plowing or what have you. That is pretty much the only reserve that we have on hand at this time for town funding. However, there are obvious needs as we sit here, and the auditor's recommendation was that the town will hold a 25% fund balance based off of the prior year's budget. So roughly we're at about, I think it came out to 18 of that 25, with that $217,000 included in that bucket. So whether the town board would be on the same page to use some of that funding towards road construction in 2023, obviously is a discussion that would have to happen, at an upcoming town board meeting. Ultimately, tonight, what I would like to get is a direction or a recommendation per se from the highway committee to the town board, so that can be noticed on the next town board agenda, and then we can potentially move forward with actually trying to facilitate some sort of road work in 2023 yet.
The auditors have always asked for us to have 25%, state law is 10%. And they, for our needs, what the town has to have for money, reserve money. We always had that 100,000 in the OGIP, which would have covered anything else. So, you know, I don't think that 25% is a realistic number when we have so much other stuff to do. But they always ask for that.
Yeah. I would genuinely agree with you. The round number that I kind of pulled out of the hat would be 115,000 of that 217, being a potential target request from the highway committee to the town board for 2023 and see where we go, which would run us just over that 10% threshold. You know, if $100,000 is something to aim at, knowing again that we're probably gonna, or we have the potential, not that we're probably, but at least the potential to come up short on some of the other, you know, road maintenance and that kind of thing. Maybe we dial it back and say, you know, if the ARPA funding isn't available 202, maybe we try to aim at $100,000 worth of work in total, 75 from fund balance and 20, you know, that 25 or so from the ARPA funding and see where all of that lands.
Well, one of the problems you're gonna have is you're gonna start to run out of time with seal coating and getting contracts out, because most seal coating, you know, from my experience and everything, most seal coating by the middle of September is pretty much, they're starting to wrap up, you know, and it's obviously June 1st, so by the time you would get to your next meeting and go like, we have these kind of funds, and then decide, I want to seal coat this section, this section, this section, do a bid document, and quick hand it out to, you know, 2-3 of the better seal coat guys in the state, you might be ending up against the wall that you don't want to, you might not want to do it because it's the cool mornings, the you know, the moisture, you're very familiar with it, you know, so just something to keep in, you know, in your head, you know, your head with chip sealing or slag sealing or.
And going over the roads like we did, checking them out, construction-wise, they're not in that much worse shape than they were 2 years ago. I mean, yeah, they're degrading somewhat, but we could probably get by without any construction at all this year, unless something blew up, you know, which we can patch, the county is more than happy to do that. And if we could do like Greg said, get some seal coating of some sort on some of these roads that were redone, you know, 8, 9, 10 years ago, they're gonna last a lot longer if we can do that.
I did have the opportunity to reach out to two contractors in my mind that would be, you know, reputable, primarily to ask them about scheduling, to see if it's worth our effort to go through this whole thing and then still end up, like you said, at the back end of the calendar. And they both were generally open to the fact that there still is room on their calendar to get done. In a perfect scenario, if we come out of tonight's meeting and we go to the town board meeting, which I believe is the 15th, you know, if we get funds committed for 23, again, just looking at it from that perspective, there's the chance that we could hit the July, it's an outside chance, but it's, you know, aggressive on that, but an outside chance that we could hit the July town board meeting for a board, again, to see where we land. At the same point, taking your opinion into the conversation as well, is that, you know, do we write what we have and patch what we need to, and look at 24 as really the first go year for this, because again, we're behind by about 3 months in my mind, and we're short on a whole bunch of the funding.
So I'm not familiar with your procedures, but does the town of Delaware require like 2 postings in the local paper?
Yeah,
You know,
it's
so
over $25,000.
right, so you'd need the 2 postings, so you would definitely at the next town board meeting have to say, we have this much money and
Yes or no?
boom, boom, you know, to get that point.
Yeah, you have to be ready.
We're pretty much looking at, if May 15th were to go, you know, that notice would have to be in the paper that
June
week.
15th,
Yeah.
June 14th, whatever.
You know, I'm sorry,
Throw me in.
here we go. So it's June 18th.
18th, okay.
and then the month after that, or the 9th. So it's, like I said, it's a short turnaround, and it would pretty much have to be in the paper the 29th. Yeah. There's an opportunity that we don't even hit that, now that I'm looking at this. If we meet on the 19th, that posting would have to be in the paper the week before, so it comes out in the paper that same week.
Excuse me,
The week of
Josh,
the
12th is the meeting, I believe.
I'm sorry, good lord.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but
Oh, thanks for the clarifier. I was gonna say, I looked at this before and I knew we could functionally do it, whether or not we could actually do it. So yeah, it's the 12th and the 12th, so we do have the ability to get it in the paper, get it noticed, get it back, and get it right back on the next town agenda, for award of the work. Again, pending funding. One of the contractors that I actually spoke to earlier today had mentioned that if we came up, next item on the agenda, called the 5-year road plan, is if we came up with the low-hanging fruit of, if we have the funding, we really would like to get it done this year. He was going to come out early next week and then start the process of trying to get us an estimate overall of where we would land, but with that, I'll be quiet for a few minutes and listen.
With the road maintenance, and maybe this is off topic just a little bit, but they put all that money in road maintenance and nothing in construction. Is that based on what they did last year, where they had Ron trimming trees for $200,000?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know that there is an answer to it, I guess it's just grumbling, but.
You've got, and also, they just, part of this that probably isn't in here, they replaced that culvert at South Shore Drive, and I heard estimates between $5,000 and $9,000 for that, so that's gotta come out of something. Because that's not out of the 23,000, that's out of the general.
That we actually could use that.
That would say that could come out of there, right there.
Correct, yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, to your question, as far as maintenance goes, in 21, they spent $229,000, in 21, they had a budget of $259, and they spent $229.
On maintenance?
Correct. This year, they've got a budget of $179, so we're down by $80,000 on maintenance overall, wherever that funding did or didn't go. I don't know specifically. There was a $9,500 expenditure for tree service, and I don't know if the tree trimming went into the tree service piece or if it was part of the road maintenance line item. But
when I was on the board, and I'm sorry I'm harping on that, Ron did a good job because I kept an eye on it. And if there was something that needed to be done, I told him to do it. He didn't have carte blanche just to go out and do it on his own. And with the last board, I think they didn't want to be bothered with that. So if you keep an eye on things, they work. If you don't keep an eye on things, they get out of hand. And we've got too many needs to be throwing money away like that.
yeah.
Do you have a target number, like between the couple different funds you've been speaking about, a target number of a possible, at the next town board meeting, the proposal to the board, can we take, this is the number that you think you could, I mean, is it gonna be 50,000, 60,000, to try to do this summer? Because, roughly you're looking around $25,000, $26,000 a mile for a 20-foot road for slag sealing, and so 2 miles eats up $50-some thousand really quick, so.
I went through similar maps that you guys obviously have for the rating piece of it, and some of them and I was just looking at the functional rating and the assumed equivalent treatment for those roads. The segment of Young Road that the town does, the the entire extent of Tower Road and then Hooper between Zion and Highway E is roughly 3.5 miles.
Yep.
So to me, those were targets for potential slag, chip, whatever it might be, to help extend those segments specifically, which again, you know, depending on where pricing comes back and that type of thing, we're looking at somewhere 75, 90-ish, you know, to do that work. That is my own, you know, was my own analysis, call it, of where funding can go. Each one of them on their own, they're not exactly the same length. Tower is a little shorter than the extent of Young, and Hooper is a little shorter than the extent of Tower, but not considerably, where if we only got, you know, if you're using big round numbers and you say 3 miles worth of road, and each one of them is about that. If we end up with 25 grand, then okay, we pick which one. If we end up with 50, we add one, 70, you know, so on and so forth, kind of thing. So.
Because the Tower, the state has a 1.08 miles, so you're up roughly a little bit over a mile, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it comes down to what, you know, like the next board meeting, what you can get allocated, you know, because you got 0, so anything above 0 is something.
Right. And at the same point, I had been looking at it from okay, we want 1 mile of road seal coated. You know, where does that rank us in the priority of the calendar? You know,
Yeah.
it's way back in the calendar, but at the same point, the window of opportunity to potentially sneak a day in.
But generally, like, you know, like, when the companies are in the area, you know, once they move, you know, like, let's say Walworth County or Jefferson County, they start to, you know, so you might be in that window that, okay, you know, we're gonna be in Walworth County in August.
Right.
So you might be able to get your day and a half's worth done in August just because they're here. The Scots always work that way. They move in, get everything they could do in Walworth County, and then they go, and then if you miss that window, you'll pretty much see it next year. Yeah. So I guess it depends on what the next meeting brings, where you can try to get 0 up to something.
I mean, going through these on your own time here, did you come up with what you thought would be a priority? I'm going to call it priority seal road.
Because you threw out Hooper Road, and that's one that I put down, we put down, you know, basically, like you say, from Z to Zion, and then, you know, and then from Zion to E, and then, you know, we, Carlin Trail seal the wedge, you know, because that's kind of a mess down in there, you know, where that is. That just, you know, stuff that in my mind, you know, and then Tamarack Road, it's in good shape, and you don't want it to go the other way, so that was that could be a good seal, and then, Marsh Road, that length of Marsh Road, and all, also could be, in my opinion, through the years I've done it, is money not wasted, because the road is in good enough shape that a seal coat would get you, let's not worry about it now for 5 more years, that kind of a thing. Because you're not really in the reconstruction end of anything right now, because this year's done with that, and that's too.
Hooper was overlaid in 2016 between E and Zion. So if we had other things that were more pressing needs, we could, I hate to put them off, but we've got other stuff that was a little bit older than that should be done. On the other hand, they can continue right on if you're doing it that way, so you might get a little bit of a break.
I guess first you have to decide where you're at, where the town board is at with actually money to do it for this particular summer.
3 miles is would be I don't wanna say a good goal, but at least
It's a starting point.
yeah.
You gotta start somewhere.
You know, for something that you've got nothing planned, if you could get like these, if you could get 3 miles of, you know, slag, seal, chip, whatever, you know, whatever you choose as your treatment, you know, I think it'd be a good start. And then, you always gotta save the potential, like something happened, you know, somebody built a house and the 40 trucks that it takes to build the house wrecked that section of road, you know, so you've always got that, you know, in the back of your head, but.
And next year, when you create a budget, you'll have a handle on what we're looking to do, and you can designate the money more appropriately.
Yeah. Obviously, that was a big hurdle that wasn't quite eclipsed on, you know, additional funding for the 23 budget, and increased levy and that kind of thing, but that, to me, is one of the biggest pieces of the upcoming budget cycle, is to, number one, have a very transparent plan for where the money is gonna go, and hopefully get the support from the residents to be able to support, you know, an increased levy or potentially levy exceedance, similar to what was proposed for 23 that, you know, didn't gain the approval, but there's an obvious big round hole in the budget with zero money in the highway maintenance piece of it that, or I should say, construction piece of it that needs to be filled at some point, or we're just gonna keep chasing, so.
Well, with the 150 in road maintenance, you can always transfer. You don't have to leave it in road maintenance, you can transfer to construction.
True, yeah.
So it's, you're just saying we've got 150,000 to play with, basically.
Between,
That includes everything.
so
Snow plowing, grass cutting.
through May, we've spent 150 of the 179 that was budgeted.
Well, you spent 150,000 already?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really, you can't steal anything from there.
No.
I mean, that's gotta stay, because you've got, like, say, you've got 2 mowings, you got the bottle that comes up, and then the potential of, you know,
So what you're looking
1
at
to
is,
3
yeah,
snowfalls, I mean, like.
at least that easy, you know.
so what you're looking at is money in it's the overage from last year is all we've got to work with.
Between that and the ARPA funding, pretty much,
Yeah.
and what's
And
in
the
the county
county
funds.
funds, yeah.
Correct. Yep. There's not a ton of options, but it helps us focus on where the options of availability,
Yeah.
you know, are, to try to ring it out, but.
But you definitely wanna use that 23,000 on culverts, because the thing that I notice is, there's a lot of culverts that haven't seen a lot of maintenance in a long time, you know, that squished ends here and there, you know,
Yeah.
Culverts or something that got fixed as needed.
right. But you got some funds to fix them, so.
Yeah, yeah. And that, you know, whether that becomes part of call it our August focus and pre-budget game plan for 2024.
But you still use that in 2024,
Correct.
so that's
Yeah.
good.
We can, ballpark again, that $7,500 a culvert kind of thing, and figure out which ones are in biggest need of replacement, and potentially use those funds in 2024 too. 2024 as well.
There you go.
Any official motion?
Without a number, I don't even know what I would
Right.
motion, truthfully.
I guess at the smallest end of this, I'll make one recommendation. I would recommend, make a motion to recommend that the town board designate the remaining ARPA funds to road construction in either 2024 or 2023 or 2024.
I would second that, because that's it's a something.
Yeah. Any specific discussion about ARPA funding designation request? All those in favor?
I
discussion on funding requests or, you know, again, we've got roughly $100,000 potentially within the statutory threshold of fund balance that we could also try to request to get added in to 2023 or 2024 as well.
I mean, in my opinion, I think that's more of a, at this point in the game of 2024, you know, so you've got some time to
Plan it out.
plan it out, so you're not just, let's just take this money and run, this is what we wanna do. And part of that's your next, what, your next new business is possible, the 5-year road plan, you know, so.
Anything specific? Make a request to designate some of the fund balance, but see where the conversation goes.
Yeah,
Why don't you see what you can get, and we can have another meeting if need be.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not adverse to coming to a couple of these.
Fair enough. Moving on to item number 4 then, discussion possible action on a 5-year road plan. What you guys got was a cleaned up version. When I was handed the highway folder from the past town board, I found copies of the 2020 and 2021 5-year plan, and it had obviously been meeting noted and that kind of thing, so I cleaned it up. Included it in your packet for tonight. Not sure if you guys wanted to go through any of that, but moving forward, we're obviously going to have a 5-year plan at the very least for 2024 and beyond. We are still sitting on the potential of getting some good news from grant funding. The past town board had gone through with Lynch and Associates input Marsh Road, South Shore Drive, and it's escaping me at the moment. I think it might have been Hooper as let's apply for some the bipartisan infrastructure law funding to see if it was available or not. We have not heard back, so I don't know again, but hopeful within the next month that we will find out whether we did get any or didn't get any, moving into the 24 budget season again and trying to game plan where we're at. But similar to ratings and the like is proceeding with how you would like to attack a 5-year plan.
I think you'd shoot for starting next year. Whatever we do this year would be incidental to that. Because basically we're just trying to get something started. But if we get started from next year and just kind of play it out, because it gets changed every year. Because next year we'll be eligible for $25,000 from the county, which is a 50-50 split. But you have to have at least a 3-year plan in place to get the money. So that's why I want a 5-year plan that covered everything.
I kind of agree, because in looking at 2021 and 22, I don't really know, is new to the town of Bell. I mean, I've lived here for my whole life, but I mean, it's new to, I don't know what actually was done in this 2020 5-year road plan. This taking rides around and having this, the marked up version, I didn't see a whole lot done in 22. And
They didn't do anything in 22 or 21.
21, so how do you take your 5-year road plan and start next year at 21 because nothing was done in 21?
Yeah.
And move the dates at, or do you
No,
no, you don't do that, you just take another,
because the roads degrade at
Yep.
different rates.
yeah, so I would think if you're gonna do a 5-year road plan, 3-year road plan, whatever you do this summer, whatever you can come up with, let's start fresh, for 24 and say, okay, this is, we have this solid, this is what we're gonna start spending, based on, with the town of Detroit, we would, we would spend $250,000 a year on roads. So you, boom, boom, that's what you would do, that's what you budget for, so you could really easily, okay, this is what we have, this is what we do. And then they started borrowing money, because obviously with the price of everything, $250,000 sounds like a lot of money, but you don't really get a lot of pulverizing and paving and road construction done, but, it's a different situation, different community, but I think you've got to start fresh with a road plan, if you're gonna do a 3-year or 5-year in 2024.